Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me for another episode of my video podcast, It's Time with Michaela Pandy. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with my friend, colleague, fellow Patriot and head coach of the Trinidad and Tobago women's football team, Mr. Kenwyn Jones. Hello my friend, and thank you so much for joining me today. I'm looking forward to an enlightening conversation as we normally have.
Hello, thank you for having me, Michaela. It's lovely to be on It's Time, and hopefully we can have a really good conversation today.
Well, I've been waiting for you to join me, and I was saving you for a special episode. Your voice is very, very important, not just here in Trinidad and Tobago and also abroad. So I'm hoping that today we could highlight a very, very important issue. Ken, today I wanted to really talk about mental health and the fallout, or let me put it this way, the mental health fallout from the pandemic on families, especially children and teenagers. Over the past week, I've been seeing on the newspapers here in Trinidad and Tobago, reports are showing that there's a worrying increase in the number of children exhibiting mental illness such as depression and anxiety, with children as young as 7 years old going to therapy. There are also reports of multiple teenagers ending their lives and engaging in self-harm. And I've been hearing this actually for some time now. I think, of course, as with many things that have occurred with us adults, the pandemic has simply worsened it, so to say. But I wanted to ask you, as somebody who've mentored so many youths and continue to work with youth, why do you think that perhaps this issue of the mental health fallout from children especially has not been addressed, or enough focus hasn't been put on it, as I think that we need to see, because they are the most vulnerable in society?
Well, the thing about mental health is it is a very taboo subject. In the Caribbean region, and more so here in Trinidad and Tobago, we do not address and give the respect mental health needs. We're thought to get on with things. We shouldn't worry about feeling sad or not being able to cope with difficult situations. We've been trained, I would say, to just go through no matter what happens. But across the world, as you can see now, and also in sports, mental health is a really, really big issue. The issue of performance, the issue of not being able to somewhat act normal or behave normally is happening. And in our society during this pandemic, the main focus was on the health protocols, saving lives, of course, and also the vaccination drive. But I think we were a bit short-sighted on preparing for issues such as mental health, because this type of behavior that is being exhibited, they usually use this for, long ago, for torture, more or less. And it is this pandemic and the lockdown is torturous to our society, to individuals, adults and children alike.
Absolutely. And I think you're right. And I mean, I'm not putting a blame on anybody, but I definitely think I expected perhaps a little bit more. I know society has its role to play, a little bit more from the Ministry of Education, given that schools have been shut down for almost 2 years, and which takes me really into the issue of school. I've had a couple other people on, presidents of Tutor and people involved in TechVoc. That was a different approach. The approach that I want us to have today is to really have a discussion of the importance of school. More perhaps the importance of a school system that creates a sense of stability and structure for children. It provides, we have seen what remote learning has done and distance learning has done. It has totally created uncertainty. Lots of children have fallen off of the education what should I call it? The education,
Wheel?
forgive me, wheel. Yes, thank you. I know you'd help me. The education wheel. My thing is that school provides also a social network for children to be with their friends and to play sports. And we were discussing just the other day the importance that it also provides a hot meal for some children. Many children were not being fed or having one proper meal during the day because they were not in school, benefiting from the school nutrition program. So in that context, not being in school and the fallout from that, and of course the role that sports plays, I was wondering what your views were.
Well, again, just as for adults, the work environment provides a social network and, of course, a structure for us. It's exactly the same with students going to school and being able to socialize and to meet with different people, different ideas. It stimulates the mind.
Yeah.
Children not being able to go to school and are now being isolated in an environment that they do not spend most of their time is somewhat of a change. You know, we're accustomed to waking up in the morning, going to work, dropping the kids off to school, and that is where we spend most of our time as human beings. For now, at the beginning of the pandemic, I said, this lockdown period is really going to determine the character of families, because now you're on top of each other 24/7. A lot of the things that are lacking during remote learning right now is only being exacerbated because the adults don't, some have time, some don't really have time. They are also frustrated at what is happening out there. You don't know if they had the loss of jobs,
Yeah.
that type of thing. So they themselves are going through a very tough period and not knowing how to deal with that. In the young adults and the children's world, they also are experiencing a lot of trauma because they're not able to go and socialize and be in that school environment, that structure that was provided that we are also accustomed to. Now things have changed. As you mentioned as well, the part of school nutrition, that is huge for a lot of poor and middle income families. At home, you're not used to feeding an entire family, 3 square meals a day because,
Yes.
again, we're going to work, we're at school for the entire day, and you don't come home till the evening time, and that is where you're able to manage your pennies. But the children now are being at home, and especially during their growth spurts, they might be eating a lot. So
Yes.
everything is interconnected at this present time. But for the kids, I think it's been during their development period, not being able to be in the environment that they are accustomed to. It's frustrating and it stunts growth, and also as young adults and children, they do not have an outlet to be able to deal with it. That is my
You
main.
know, and we know that when we were younger, and we are from Caribbean families, and you see so many different surveys that come up that talk about Latin America and Caribbean countries. Our entire culture is different, and we tend to, although we are very close, family-based cultures, we do also tend to be a bit distant. Our parents are up here and we're there, and when they say no, no is no, and we don't talk and we don't question and we don't, we sort of accept it and go on. And then of course we have this situation where when you would go to school, you'd have your friends. I mean, I did, and I would have my friends and I would talk to my friends, perhaps things I may not have spoken to my parents about. And I just found that I looked at the ministry, and I think they are trying, but I think they're leaving out a very, very important issue, and the issue of children's mental health. And like I say, the academic is so important. And I mean, we have addressed that before, and we will continue to address that. But When you start seeing statistics where children are harming themselves, committing suicide because they think they've dropped behind their friends in school, that they don't know what to do, they don't know who to speak to, all the other problems that are happening also at home. We don't address the issue of single parents. Can we have talked about this so many times? Who's looking after these kids?
Well, unfortunately, it looks like no one. That is the sad thing. I think more than anything else during this pandemic, it should have given us a very obscure point of view, maybe. The children are the future. We've said it time and time again. Leaders have said it, different figures have said it over time. And we have to be able to look after the human being. If we're not able to look after the human being, I think we are going to become extinct. We all know you need people to survive, not only to speak to, but also to go to work, become model citizens so they can carry on the work of the country. And if we are
That's
losing
right.
so many young people at this present time, what is our
Exactly.
future going to look like? It's really
Our
scary.
human, we've had this conversation so many times and years ago, and we have said that the most important resource is our human resource. And we're looking at our children and we're saying, oh, they're only teenagers. If you're 15, within a couple of years, you're gonna be a young adult. And I don't know, I think we have to perhaps, which is why I wanted to do this show today with you, again, just to highlight the issues of being able to speak. And I do accept that parents are going through a lot of stress, and I do accept that there's job losses, as you had very rightly said. People, they're trying to feed their own families. So many things within yourself, your own stresses that you're going through, but somewhere something has to bridge the gap. And going back to what I was saying, perhaps it needs to be school.
Well, to be honest with you, school is going to go back to its regularly scheduled program. When kids go back out to school, yes, they're going to fall into a structure, but at the same time, that structure still negates the interest behind the human being. Again, you're gonna have kids that are going to go to school and yes, fall in that automated um, schedule, but still they're gonna have issues that they're not gonna be able to talk about with anyone. They're gonna have performance issues, as you rightly said. They're gonna have issues at home. Um, and only to be exasperated again by this pandemic. There are kids that had a lot of problems at home, and school was the outlet for them to get away from it for a while. But now they've been in the situation where, some might be in there getting abused. Um,
Which
you
we're going
know,
to talk about, which we're
and
definitely going
and
to
that is
talk about.
yeah, that is a major issue. So if we do not have an outlet, and I'm not just talking about going to school, but I'm talking about maybe guidance counselors in school,
Yeah.
different psychologists, for us to be able to have an outlet, because you have to remember that those that connection or intermediary of communication, it's a non-judgmental zone for a lot of
Yeah.
people. It
Yeah.
is hard to go to speak to your parents or your brother or your cousin or even a friend about issues you're having, because the first thing that returns to you is an air of judgment, and
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
that
Even us as adults, we get
exactly,
it. We
and
get
even
it.
having that guidance counselor or psychologist, in a neutral environment provides the medium for adults, children, young
Yeah.
teenagers to be able to get things off their chest and off their mind, and to seek some sort of help. So I do think
I
that we need to look into, providing such outlets for the youth.
I'm with you 100%. And I think the days of, if you're depressed or you're feeling anxiety, that you're mad or you're hardened, we need to, move a little past that. And I want to follow up from what you were saying, to the extent that we've just seen the budget for 2022. fiscal year 2022. And we've seen education once again get one of the highest allocations. I want to believe that is perhaps $6.8 billion. And again, I never know where the money is going, and nobody knows, and there's no accountability and transparency. But I'm just wondering, and whoever's making the decisions and whoever's making the policy and deciding where the money should go within the Ministry of Education, that perhaps that is something, as we haven't started, the budget was just recently. Now is a time to perhaps get some of that money together and allocate that money and put it towards whether it is guidance counselors in schools or something that will be able to help kids. I don't profess in any way or form to be a psychologist or an expert in this, but it is something that we need to talk about. And perhaps, I mean, some of that money should go into this, no?
Well, you would think that. But over the years, we've continued to pile money into education without actually changing our education system. The pandemic again highlighted the deficiencies that we have as an educational system, and also where we're at compared to the rest of the world. I think our education system is still colonialized, and it has not moved into the modern way of doing things. And we see that we're having problems with teachers not being able to use the online platform pretty well, students not using the online platform pretty well. And that is because we have been stuck in such a colonial way of education. And there are too many studies out there that see time and time again that we need to do away with certain things and add new methods, but it seems like no one wants to take that chance. And of course, again, the in that allocation of $6.8 billion,
6.88, so sorry. So we're looking at about $7 billion.
roughly, we should be looking at all the different components that surrounds education. You want to have a safe environment for kids to be able to learn, and a creative and innovative environment for them to learn, because it's the way of the 21st century and beyond. But also you want to be able to have that safe space for the youth to be able to stay in that sane zone. Because the pressures that we put on our children to continue to perform at tests is a hell of a lot. And a lot of children are, having obstacles in school, difficulty in learning because they may learn differently. And also you have the issues at home where they don't have support of parents, or they're being pressured by parents to perform on these tests, because that is the only way you're going to be able to determine if you're smart, if you perform well on the test.
That's right. If you do well on a test. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We're still in there and zoning all children into one way. You either do well or you don't do well, and if you're not, you're dunce. And you can't be an artist. You can't be a sportsman or woman. And that really, really worries me, because all these parents are also competing for a limited amount of spaces in the schools they want their kids to go to, while we're not trying to actually make the other schools that we have and the government schools that we have better. Mm-hmm. I think those schools should be leading the way. And we just see all this money again coming and being thrown all the time, and nothing is happening. And to me, that is extremely worrying. But also, I have to say, as a society, and I know you'd agree with me, we do have as well a social responsibility to our children. We can't blame the government solely all the time on everything. We tend to all of a sudden not want to get involved. We turn a blind eye to things that we're seeing around us. Too often we see this, especially in rural areas where people tend to be poorer. The children are neglected. They are so vulnerable. Their parents don't have money to send them to a counselor, charging however much money an hour. And I mean, what happens to those kids? there's no outreach, social programs. I'm now talking independently of government. I know there are charities, I work with many of them, but I think as a society, are we failing our children?
I do believe we have, to take some responsibility for that. I think the families long ago, there's always a man in the village that, would be putting on sports, or you had that communal type living where people would look out for one another, get involved in activities, and that in itself, maybe it's a byproduct of crime over the years that has stopped something like that. But I think that in itself helped us to be able to take pride in where we're from, and that has definitely been lost. I mean, we could talk about everything we see on the newspapers every day here in Trinidad and Tobago, and it seems that if the focus has is placed on the wrong things. I think we have health centers, but we have to be able to create, the avenues for psychologists to be able to operate. So why not have them have an office in the health centers that people will be able to go there and reach out to, and not leave it to be in a specific area or building or some part of network. We have a health center for a reason. So there should be some
Yeah.
sort of outreach happening within communities, for people that are not able to have that outlet.
What are we using the community centers for example?
Well, I
You've
think
got a
it's
community center.
for bingo nights.
Bingo nights, bingo nights. But we got this community center. We could social distance and we have to live within the pandemic. It's not going anywhere soon. So we live within. We have counselors, group activities, so many different things. I remember, and I love this. My grandmother was from Marabella, and they lived in Taruba, and the whole village used to come together, and they had sports day. And everybody, whether it's sandwiches or whatever, they never got any money from government or
Nope.
social welfare or whatever. But we used to put things on together. Life has become so busy that nothing like this happens. So we've totally lost a sense of community. And we also have to remember, and I know this one for a fact, that there are a lot of people worried about their children.
Mm-hmm.
And the almost disgusting, unspeakable things and acts are committed against children, where people are afraid to let their kids go out. They're afraid to let them go, by the neighbor. I also wanted to bring that up. It kind of puts a damper on something, but I think if people like me and you speak about it, others may listen and then feel more comfortable. During this period, Ken, I've been approached by so many different people,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes grandparents, sometimes neighbors, that know children are being sexually harassed, interfered with, as we say in Trinidad, and they're trying to do something, but they don't know what to do. They themselves feel so frustrated. And the system, therefore, is also failing children.
Is it the system?
Well, I say the system because there is something in place. We have the Child Protection Unit, but I can tell you, and I'm not blaming everybody, but I can tell you that I know that many times it's the same issue going on, and they are great people because I work with certain people there and wonderful people, but there's so much bureaucracy. And there's so much red tape, and there's so many things before you have to go, and when you go, and then you this, that. We don't have enough female officers for the girl children, who it tends to happen to more predominantly, for them to speak to. So we don't have enough of anything. Then they don't have any vehicles to go. And then the police say that's not their business. So yes, to an extent, it is also the system.
Well, the system is what it is. It's a structural plan, I do think. The problem is the human beings within the system.
Yeah.
When you look at the low level, sexual abuse against children is something that has been happening from the beginning of time. And if we speak about Trinidad and Tobago, it's been happening in rural areas where grandparents, grandfathers, grandmothers, at times would be, abusing their grandchildren, who they've also abused their children. And that is something that a lot of rural families grew up with. Um, so right then and there, it's an issue of the human being, of course, committing acts such as, but also of the ones that within the family unit know and turn a blind eye as well.
Yeah.
There are so many stories of that, and then you have in the wider system, um, a lot of people tend to switch off and not be open to receiving this information and doing something about it.
Yeah.
So those people within the system sort of neglect their moral obligation rather than just being a part of a structure and an institution and clocking your card from 9 to 5. They tend to just get sucked into the problem of, oh, well, there are no vehicles, and then you have to do this, man, and not
Correct.
treat the situation with the importance and the aggressive action that is needed. It's countless stories. I'm pretty sure you can go in any part of Trinidad and Tobago and speak to
Trinidad
someone
and
who
Tobago.
would have been either around sexual abuse, have seen it, have been told about it, but they tend to never say anything. Now with social media and it becoming so prevalent of people speaking out now, I think it's now been made comfortable for someone to say something. But before that, families used to turn a blind eye to the situation.
But my thing, and I want to come back because we went through the issue of schools, what schools can do. We went through the issues of what government can do. We've gone through the issue of what society can do, and we all seem to be failing our kids. My concern is that many times, and again, this is the experience that I've had, when these kids are approached, they don't say anything. It happens. It happens. I'm dealing with something in Point Fortin at this stage, and then something up in the east, and I'm sure it happens throughout Trinidad. We need to train more people. We need our country at this moment. We don't have enough psychologists. We don't have enough psychiatrists. We don't have enough counselors. We seem to be lacking social workers, for example, for kids. And what really worries me is even the ones that we do have, I have, for example, a lovely girlfriend. She was working in a school, and it was a purely guys' school, and the young boys were feeling comfortable and were beginning to chat and open up to her. And before you know it, she got transferred.
Because she's doing too much work.
Because she's doing too much work, So I'm thinking, well, how could this have possibly happened to her? When we're saying we don't have enough counselors, we don't have enough guidance counselors, we don't have enough social workers, we don't have enough. Maybe what we should do, Ken, is look at the gate system and set it up in such a way to encourage other people to study or to get involved in these professions?
Well, what you're talking about there is just the point of view of our leaders, actually looking after what the people need rather than what they our society need to have counselors, and a lot of things are needed to be addressed for our society, but we're constantly focusing of what we want to do. We want to put up a new building. We want to have a lot of new housing. We want to be able to make sure gas is up. Yes, all these things are important, but in order for it to be effective, we have to think of what the people need. And looking after the human being is most important, because then we would not have any human beings in our society to be able to have this country going. um, all the education institutions out there, tertiary, secondary, they can do something themselves by opening up these avenues of education streams. You need counselors, you need psychiatrists, you need psychologists, but for a lot of them, there is no there is a platform in Trinidad and Tobago or a space for you to be able to go in and work. It's, well, from the outlook, it doesn't look like you can, but again, it takes our personal intellect to become a bit creative and innovative. So even though you do go to school and you study to become a psychologist or psychiatrist, you can then create your own streams and have a place to flourish. You don't have to wait
Exactly.
for the government to hire you to be,
The
in a,
government to hire you. There's, you could do, yeah.
you
Yeah.
can set up in a neighborhood and be that for people, so that they have that outlet. But it takes a collective effort, and it also takes a bit of innovation where thinking is concerned.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm just hoping, I think everything comes down to, as we have discussed, having a vision. You have to have a vision for your country. You've got to make policy decisions not based solely on votes. You have to look at what the country needs. Not everybody can be a doctor or a lawyer or this. I mean, we live on an island. I'm sure we need some marine biologists and all these architects, all these wonderful things. And just going back to exactly what you've always said, we need to reevaluate the entire education system and create leaders and innovators, and not somebody who's just there, to go out and get a job. I am hoping, I really am hoping, and perhaps we can speak about this at another time, that we could look at how maybe we need to lobby the government to introduce some kind of plan for this. I don't know what you think.
The government can assist for sure, but I think we also need to change how we think culturally, and we need
Yeah.
to rally the people to open themselves up to this type of way of thinking. We definitely need to change that traditional way of going about our business, our ministries, our education, even the the professions that we want to have for our careers. We need to rethink
Yeah.
that. At the 21st century going beyond, things have changed. It have changed
Absolutely.
drastically. And if we're still thinking
Absolutely.
that, we are going to operate in a phone booth and use a rotary telephone because we're accustomed to that, we are going to
Yeah.
get left behind terribly.
Yes,
So we
absolutely.
definitely need a new wave of thinking. Not saying that the current leaders or the past leaders are out of depth. They certainly have a lot of experience, but we also need to fashion that, and commingle it with new minds and people of this
That's what
century.
we're there for. This century, I like
To
that.
change things, because the outlook on everything, it needs to change. It doesn't matter what category of society you're talking about, it needs to change because we've been doing one thing for a long time, but now we're expecting different results. And that's the
And that's
recipe
the
for
definition
insanity.
of insanity,
That's it.
correct? Ken, on that note, I want to end on a positive vibe. I see that you've been doing great things, which I'm very proud of, and congratulations, and the whole country congratulates you. Two things, how are things going with your appointment as head coach? And can you tell us a little bit about your goal to create what I've read is the open arm policy for young people who are interested in learning about coaching and physiotherapy? And can you tell us
Well,
if it's not a secret and I haven't like
no.
burst the
It
files?
definitely isn't a secret. It's always an idea that I have about sharing information. I cannot qualify anybody to be a coach or a physiotherapist, but what I can do is definitely give you some exposure in an environment where you would learn about these said categories.
Great.
I think far too long we've been, very closed off when we get into these positions that, I'm head coach of such and such team and I'm the president of this and that we close off giving people the exposure and pointing them in the right direction to
Yeah.
see if that is something they're interested in and how they can explore and how they can get to certain points. For me, in order for us to become better in the future and to have a lot of young coaches like myself or physiotherapists or data analysts, we need to expose people to this information and environment so that they would know what they're getting themselves into and how hard it is and how difficult it is to maneuver through, but also just give them the knowledge and the exposure and point them in the right direction, because that is how you're going to increase the pool and build the industry itself. And hopefully, for as long as I'm there, I'll be able to do that. And I definitely, apart from coaching and having the performance of the women's team, it hopefully I will fulfill my purpose and my dream of being able to share information with people, because I do think it is important, because you have on one end people saying that they like such and such, but they don't have an outlet or any information of, and then you have the people that close it off. I don't think that we should close off. Of course, it's not going to just be something very open-ended where I'll have 100 people showing up, but from time to time being able to scan the candidates, checking their characteristics, of course, their personalities, and also their area of interest, so that we can orderly expose people to the information that they need and they want to see, and create
I'm
more
so proud of you.
for the future.
I'm so proud of you, and that is why it's so important for young people and to see. And I'm proud, and I'm not saying anything bad about the coaches with great experience, but what I am saying is it's nice to see a young coach who wants to share as well. And we find it so many times, even in politics and in law. People sort of want to hoard information and not want to share information, and then we wonder why there's no succession, and complain about that. Ken, I want to thank you so very much for being here with me today and for helping highlight such an important issue as mental health. Our youth need our help and a voice. Thank you for all that you are doing. I believe it, and I will continue to say it. You are a great inspiration to young people, and where there's a will, there's a way. And of course, we work together and we will continue to do so. And I just want to say thank you so much. And I hope a lot of people will look at this and realize that, yes, this is me. This is my family. This is what's happening to me. And at the end, we're going to put some numbers up so we could at least in that way begin to allow people to reach out.
Thank you very much for having me. It was my absolute pleasure being on today.
Great.
Hopefully, I'll be on sometime in the future, because I know there's a long list of people waiting to get on.
Absolutely. You'll be again. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
Ken.
you very much.
Good luck with all you're doing. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If this episode has affected you and you would like to reach out, please do so. You can find my contact details and some important numbers in the link below. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Please click the like button, subscribe to my channel for free, and hit the bell icon so you won't miss any new episodes. Thank you.